Let's call it what it is. It's martial law without any tanks on the streets. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is Constitution Corner. Well, it goes without saying that coronavirus provides perhaps the single greatest threat to the American Constitution maybe since the colonial days. I mean, think about what happened in the Civil War. I mean, perhaps the first major hurdle that the Constitution found was the Civil War. And this is where you actually have a country that's threatening to dissolve itself, right? You have secession from the United States of America. You have half the country being pulled in a different direction. And you think about some of the things that Abraham Lincoln did. Lincoln, who is a remarkable president and a remarkable man. But that's not to say that Lincoln didn't do things that helped ultimately to throw the Constitution in jeopardy. The suspending of habeas corpus, some of the things that Lincoln felt compelled to do to keep the Union together absolutely can be seen as anti-Constitution. When you can debate for yourself the merits of those actions, and ultimately the necessity for them, nevertheless, that was a huge crisis for us. And I don't think since then, not even the Great Depression, not even World War II would count as threats to the Republic the way this virus, in its early stages, is already posing to the United States of America. In World War II, we interned the Japanese. We implemented rationing programs, but we had nothing like the kind of suspension of liberty and freedom of movement that you're getting now, primarily from state governors. We don't know what's going to come on the federal level. I mean, we know whatever gets done at the federal level is going to cost trillions, with a T, trillions and trillions of dollars. It's going to basically infuse the country with money that is simply printed from whole cloth. Money that we don't have. We're already trillions of dollars in debt. Money that will be invented out of whole cloth, that will have nothing to support behind it, that's going to be pumped right into the economy. And we have no idea what this means for inflation. We have no idea what this means for the constitutional order as it stands. A lot of this is being done in a very haphazard way. We're not sure that we know for a fact that the standard course of the way federal government is supposed to act under the basis of the Constitution, that much of what the document says isn't being followed here. And this is a rush to judgment. This is the need for politicians to be seen as doing something. One thing to be a politician in the 24-hour news cycle is to be perceived as a politician who's not doing something in the face of a crisis. That's usually the kiss of death. And that's why it's so staggering to think that what you've got going on the Democrat side and the Republican side is not a fight over whether or not the federal government has the right to engage in some of these sweeping, I would call them draconian pieces of legislation that they're contemplating about who can go where, who can travel, basically voluntarily hamstring our own economy, demanding halts, grinding halts to the kinds of industry that we've never done that to. Not during the Great Depression, not during World War II, not even during the Civil War did we demand this kind of lack of movement, this kind of forced shuttering of huge swatches of the government, that of industry that ultimately fund government. So at the same time, we're shutting down the economy in a largely unconstitutional way, demanding that private businesses, that private corporations cease, even ones that could safely go about their business, are being completely shuttered now. At the state level, too, we talked about this. It's not just the federal level. State governors have an absolute right to follow the Constitution of the United States, to say nothing of their own state constitutions, most of which do not allow governors to engage in this kind of absolutely, let's call it what it is. It's martial law without any tanks on the streets, right? It's a kind of martial law that the American people have rolled over for, and they're seeming to accept because the government might be sending us a check someday. And so the big question becomes, months from now when the virus is gone, it's yesterday's news, like SARS was, right, or the Spanish flu was 100 years ago. When this is now a blip on our epidemiological history, what remains in tatters of our constitutional republic if they have the power at the federal level and then at the state level to engage in this kind of interventionism? And not just in terms of people's individual life, liberty, their ability to move. I mean, some of these states are passing laws that make it impossible to sell guns during this particular crisis. Illinois is one of those states. If they have that power now at the state level, at the federal level, what makes you think for 1 second they won't use it again? And if we get to the point where 25,000 people die in this country, we're still a long way away from that, and that's it, that's still only half as many as die from the flu every year. If they can, in this kind of intervention for something as relatively, looking back, as relatively harmless as this virus may turn out to be, then why can't they declare an emergency for almost anything? Gun violence. Why can't they then, if they can point to the fact that, hey, 20,000 people in America last year died at the hands of guns, why can't you intervene the same way? Constitution be damned. Why can't they now, that they've set this very, very dangerous precedent, why can't they use it as a tool anytime they want to and anytime they need to? And imagine this powerful tool in the hands of Democrats. This has been Liberty News Hour. As always, you can go to thenewamerican.com and jbs.org for more information on these subjects and more shows.